Hey folks, I'm Chris and I'm your Commander Mechanic. All month long I'm celebrating 5 years of tuning up your decks, upgrading precons, and making cool brews. And on this special occasion I wanted to look back at my very first deck that I ever tuned up, a revisit of my first video on the channel, Nethroi Apex of Death. Now, looking back at this, there were definitely some major issues with both the submitted deck and even my tuned up version. See, Nethroi Apex of Death is a reanimation engine, and reanimation decks want a few specific things like creatures in the yard consistently. But Nethroi itself doesn't have to be a consistent reanimation engine. Leave that to commanders like Carador, Ghost Chieftain, or Marin of Clan Neltoth. No, instead Nethroi wants a big burst of reanimation. Our commander is a 5-mana 5/5 Nightmare Cat Beast with Death Touch and Lifelink that reads, whenever this creature mutates, return any number of target creatures with total power 10 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. It has its own mutate cost, of course, of 7 mana. And this is where we get options. We can either cast Nethroi as a 5/5 and mutate onto them, getting the reanimation trigger with a Gemrazor or a Dirgebat. Or we could mutate Nethroi onto something to get the reanimation trigger for several creatures. And that was the real dividing line in my original tune-up. Is it worth it to get lots of triggers for 1 to 2 creatures at a time, or is it worth it to use Nethroi as a bomb of reanimation? Before I get into the details, make sure to toss a like to your mechanic and hit that subscribe button too. 5 more years! 5 more years! Looking back on my recommendations, I really pushed to remove a lot of the mutate creatures from the deck. Mutate is great, and I've really come around to it in the intervening years, but only having 5 to 6 mutate creatures like Boneyard Lurker, Migratory Greathorn, or Necropanther in the original deck still meant you're only really looking at one piece of the puzzle. Otherwise, you're cramming your deck with ways to mill some pretty subpar creatures. We want reanimation targets, but we don't want too powerful of reanimation targets, since Nethroi can only get us 10 power back from the yard at a time. Which means including massive powerhouses like Grave Titan or Sun Titan are often not worth it if you can't intentionally manipulate the power of creatures in your graveyard. You end up paying 5 mana for Nethroi, another 3 mana to mutate onto it to get back like 1 creature? 2 creatures? It's not enough bang for your buck. That begs that you ramp pretty considerably too, and that you tutor to your yard, and that you make a blood sacrifice of the commander gods in order to make sure everything goes right. It just ends up being too unfocused and a lot to ask. You have to get the stars to align for the deck to work that way. It doesn't do the thing consistently. The more pieces you add, the less focused you get, and the less focused you get, the less consistent you are. So looking back, I made a decision. I rated the deck a 0. In that, I wanted to reanimate everything with Nethroi. And how can you do that when Nethroi limits you to 10 power reanimated at a time? Well, you cram your deck with 0 power creatures, of course. Unlike with a star power like Adeline Resplendent Cathar, a creature with a printed power of 0 is a 0 power creature even in the graveyard and in every other zone. A creature with a star power calculates that power in every zone, from your hand to your library to, yes, your graveyard. Sorry, Lord of Extinction, you are a non-bow with Nethroi. If we include almost nothing but creatures with 0 power in our decks that get bigger via counters or abilities that set power and toughness, then no matter how many times our board is wiped or how much of our deck we mill, we get it all back every time we mutate with our commander from the command zone. I'm talking everything from Birds of Paradise to Fertilid to Night Howler. No matter the utility or the raw power, we can just play our decks as normal and bam, our commander reanimates everything that we have in the graveyard all at once. That means that the deck plays a bit like a classic +1/+1 counter deck at times, with Yorvo, Cytoplast Rootkin, and Slurk all providing valuable benefit in the 99, but also including Pelugrinos Unchained, Phantom Nishiba, and Boss's Chauffeur, all providing massive powerhouse hits in the deck that are just always good to cast. But if we get board wiped, or better, initiate a board wipe ourselves, then we can easily get everything back all at once. This has to be the most resilient creature-based deck ever. Just keep in mind that every recovery requires more and more mana, so we need to keep ramping. The biggest bang for our buck that we want to do is win in one turn, which is entirely possible. But how, you may ask? Well, Seeker of Skybreak and Mesmeric Orb are a 2-card infinite mill combo. Seeker's ability to untap a creature doesn't say other, so it can target itself, and Mesmeric Orb mills us a card whenever we untap a permanent, so we can have that Seeker target itself to untap again and again and again until every card in our library is in our graveyard. And since Seeker isn't a human, we can then mutate Nethroi onto the Seeker to reanimate every creature we've just put in our graveyard. This includes one of the only creatures with power in the list, Mogus's Marauder. It has the very unique ability of granting haste and menace to creatures in black of all colors. And as long as you can grant haste to the crashing drawbridge in the deck, you can then give all of your creatures haste. Then we can sacrifice that same drawbridge to Towering Titan to give all of our creatures trample too. And Sweetgum Recluse will put an additional 3+1/+1 counters on everything that entered the battlefield this turn, meaning we can then just swing for the fences in combat. And if that doesn't finish off all of our opponents at once, we also have Viscera Seer and Blood Artist in the deck to really put the final nail in the coffin by sacrificing all of these reanimated creatures to deal an extra 30+ damage to our opponents. If that's not a game ender, I don't know what is. We can also achieve this with Living Death, also in the deck too, but once we want to mutate Nethroi even a second time, casting a Rise from the Dark Realms is more efficient, both costing 9 and a Rise getting you everything back from every graveyard. So yes, it is important to do what green does best, ramp. All of the 2 and 3 mana ramp spells should be a priority in the deck, and getting up to 7 or 9 mana should be your goal. Lots of mana dorks, lots of ramp, and lots of other ways to mill. We can't rely solely on Mesmeric Orb to mill, that's just not consistent enough without some upgrades. But Ripples of Undeath, Cemetery Tampering, and Palantir of Orthanc all give us options to fill our yard and make a single mutate Nethroi a big impact. Without the reanimation or mill element, fall back on Golgari Gravetroll, Colonian Hydra, and Multani to close out a game. Some big threats can just be big threats and still win you the game. If I were to upgrade this brew beyond a bracket 2, I'd definitely introduce some consistency in tutors. Demonic Tutor, Vampiric Tutor, Diabolic Intent, and everything in between helps us to get the infinite mill pieces more efficiently. They act as extra copies of our combo pieces, and remember, redundancy equals consistency when it comes to combos. But we do need to make it to 7 or 9 mana, so an Ancient Tomb in the deck certainly doesn't hurt. Well, it hurts our life total, but you get my point. Honestly though, I think that this is a fun, regular deck. It's not cheap, but it does the thing, even if your commander is treated more like a sorcery than a creature. Nothing beats pulling back your 30 or so creatures from the yard all at once though. It's a great feeling. Let me know what you think about this revisit of my very first video on the channel. Is there anything you'd add into a Nethroi brew like this? Be sure to let me know in the comments, and be sure to check out my full deck list right now at my sponsor, MOXFIELD. MOXFIELD is the best deck building platform in the world and makes it easy to build decks to specific brackets thanks to their built-in automated bracket detection tools. Never misjudge your decks again, and be sure to follow my profile to never miss any of my brews. If you want to pick up any of the cards for this list, be sure to go to Card Trader. Use my promo code MECHANIC now for 5% off your orders from any TCG. Card Trader's zero system means you can get cards from all over the world with only one shipping fee. Save money and time today. And if you want to sell off your cards, whether they be unused or just duplicates, go to Card Conduit. If you're selling out of anything from Pokemon to Star Wars to Magic, get premium rates for your cards. Ship them unsorted today and get a check in the mail. If you were inspired to brew, you have to hit that subscribe button. Be a gem and check out some of the other videos on the channel right now too. And as always, good luck and have fun!